Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Áines Tales from the Hearth. So this week it is a blog called Raise the Roof, and it's just an interesting journey of discovery by myself. It's self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it and too much chat about it. I'm going to go straight into it and maybe just have a word or two at the end. So I hope you all enjoy. Raise the Roof. It was one of my recent online posts that set me off on this very interesting journey of discovery. A before and after photo that I posted up before, but obviously hadn't reached the same amount of people or had the same impact. The photo was one of the previous inhabitants of the cottage, sitting in a chair in front of the kitchen window from almost 80 years ago, to one of me in a similar position but taken from further away. The photo got a lot of comments questioning, was it the same window? Was it even the same cottage? And one or two wondering whether the roof had been raised or the window had been lowered. Now, most were because they couldn't see the difference in perspective. The original black and white photo was taken at a side angle and in close proximity. In my modern take, it is face on and much further away. The change in the thatch also made a visual difference, as the old thatch hung lower with a fringe effect, and the new thatch is thicker, higher, and is cut straight across. But something kept niggling in the back of my head, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was definitely still a difference between the height of the wall above the window in the 1950s photo compared to any photo after that time. I didn't sleep properly for days thinking about it, and as I like to say, my head was addled. If the wall height had been changed at some point, surely that would mean the A-frame structure on the inside must have been changed as well. This confused me, as the inside part of the roof seemed so ancient, so perfectly preserved, and it made me so sad to think that it had possibly been tampered with at one point. After trying to get some answers online to no avail, I touched base with one of Joe's brothers, Martin. Martin is one of those people that has a great brain for answers to the weird and wonderful, and is a bit of a vernacular houses nerd. Marvellous Marzi, as we like to call him on occasion. He asked me to take measurements of the outside wall from the top of the window to the base of the roof and do the same on the inside. He said he had a good idea what was going on. I did as asked and got a measurement of 27 to 30 inches on the outside and a mere 4 to 7 on the inside. A huge difference. Martin explained then as to his reasons for the measurements and why. He told me that in the 1960s and onwards, the Irish government were giving grants to thatched home owners to remove the thatch roof and replace it with corrugated tin. The majority of people, of course, took up the offer, seeing it as a cheap way to upgrade and save, as the cost of straw and labour would have increased, as well as the availability of thatch and thatchers. With a tin roof, there was no upkeep or maintenance and no risk of fire. And in that time, a lot of Irish people were embarrassed to be living under a straw roof, it being seen as peasant-like and old-fashioned. It was also a reminder to many of very hard times. Unfortunately, and to our vernacular history's detriment, along with the removal and burning of the thatch roof, in a lot of cases the A-frame was ripped out and burnt with it as well. Martin was able to tell me of one case in the Knoll, County Fingal, where in the 1980s he watched them do exactly that to the roof of an old thatch building. The McMahon family that lived in Mayo House must have availed of that grant at some stage after the photo was taken in 1950. The measurements indeed proved that the walls were lifted with blocks to support the new tin roof. But what the measurements also prove is the huge difference between the outside and the inside of the cottage. And though the outside was altered, the inside was never actually touched. Better again, this proves that the inner A-frame of peg and dowel timber and straw, which is earth and sod, are indeed original and in fact more rare and more important than I ever realised. After a lot of research, there was very little to go on, I found a couple of articles that talk about the A-frame structures of old thatch houses, yet not one mention of either the old grant or the removal of these precious frames. This is some of what I learned and some of what I knew already. The one room depth of most Irish cottages is probably due in some part to the length of timbers that were available to create an A-framed roof. Wood was sourced from local trees, often birch, oak or pine, and in some cases people went to the bogs and used bog oak. They constructed the roof by testing the long timbers directly on top of the stone walls. The shorter timbers, bracing collars, were positioned between a pair of longer ones, as in the letter A. Wooden pegs were used as pins between the join, which are called dowels, before nails were introduced later on. On top of the timbers went the layers of scraw. Scraw is lengths of turf, sod and even heather to form the first layer. This layer was not only a natural insulator, but the pieces were laid out to overlap each other, ensuring a weather-tight ridge as well as a fireproof barrier. Here's a lovely description by Seamus Conroy from County Laois. To make the scraw, you'd go up to the mountain bog where there'd be grass and heather. You'd cut your scraw, maybe 2 foot wide and maybe 10 feet long, and then roll it up. You'd let it dry in the summertime. When the weight had gone out of it, you'd bring it home and you put it up on the new roof. Then you'd roll it down like a carpet. It would be stitched on then. It would be about 4 or 5 inches in thickness. Once that was done, you'd have a grip for the scallops. Scallops are bent hazel or willow twigs in the scraw. In 1911, more than half of Ireland's houses were thatched. Today, in 2024, the number is about 1,000, with that decreasing day by day. Of those left, how many still have the original A-frame structure that are in use? I can't imagine it's many. Thatch is designed to be renewable and replaceable, but a vernacular roof frame is not. Once they are gone, they are irreplaceable, as they are part of the very fabric of the building. Trojany Cottage is not only one of the last remaining thatched cottages in Ireland, it is also one of the very few that is habitable with its original vernacular roof structure completely intact. It is a rare gem indeed, and that has just recently been recognised by the Historic Houses of Ireland, who have just given me the green light to be on the prestigious group of listed buildings. Only one of a couple of thatched cottages to be accepted. It has been far too long that the humble thatched cottages of Ireland have been kept aside in favour of the grander specimens. No offence to the wonderful and beautiful buildings that they are, but it was not through large windows and sweeping staircases that the majority of Irish people lived, but within earth and stone, under straw and scrawl. I slept very well since making those new discoveries, and I know for sure a certain someone would be mightily pleased that I finally learned what he would surely have known all along. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thanks for listening. I hope you didn't nod off halfway through. I found it extremely interesting. Of course I did. It's personal to me when it's talking about something to do with thatched cottages, vernacular cottages. But I think it is fascinating, the fact that we take for granted those little details, like things like that, like the A-frame structure of the roof, and the history that is in there. Look, I have, learned a little bit more since, and I've spoken to a few people about it. And yes, there are still probably plenty of those A-frame roof structures dotted around the country, but they're in dilapidated cottages that are falling apart, or the roof is falling apart itself, or they're certainly not habitable. So even though they are there, they're around the place, but they're falling asunder, which is very sad. It's very, very sad. But that is just the nature of it, the way things are in the country, that the money isn't there. People don't want to, well, it's an awful lot of work and expense. And the grants only go so far. It's very hard for people to put a thatch roof back on any sort of old cottage. Insurance is just impossible, and for the insurance that you can get, it's like crazy money. So you can understand why these places have been left to rack and ruin. But it's just to say that you know, it is a rare thing to actually have a cottage that is habitable, that people can come and actually stay in, that has that complete intact roof structure, is a very rare thing, a very special thing, and I'm so proud of it. And just to be reminded in that way that I had to go and relearn it all again, something that I know Joe would have known, and his brothers, you know, understood, and he would have known about, but just on my own I had to learn it again. And in that learning, it was just so exciting and so wonderful, and just another reminder of how special that the cottage is, if I didn't need one already. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions on it, or you're interested in it at all. If you have any questions I didn't address on it, please let me know. Put something down in the comments. I'd be happy to reply, or let you give you any information that I can. And in the meantime, have a lovely what's left of your weekend, of your Sunday, and I'll see you guys all next week for another Áine's Tales from the Hearth. Take care. Slán.